Picture this. Your child comes home one day and jumps on the computer. They're not playing video games or chatting with their friends. They are checking their SAT score. They're super excited. They think they did really well on test day a few weeks ago. But they're also nervous. They take a deep breath, and before clicking the check my score button, they say, "Mom, I'm a little too nervous. Can you do it for me?" You take the computer, the web page starts to load, you cross your fingers, and you see that they scored better than you ever thought was possible. Because they crushed this test, they're going to have more opportunities for the rest of their life. They're going to be able to pick their college rather than have their college pick them. They're going to have more opportunities for scholarship money, and they're going to have a wide array of doors open to them. This dream of a higher SAT score and crushing the exam is not just a dream. Studying is like going to the gym, and with SoFlo Tutors guidance and proven 3-step method, we can help raise your child's SAT score. And the first step is just a phone call away. Click on the button below. You'll be brought to a page where you can schedule a call so we can learn more about your goals and introduce our program. We want to help you achieve the dream of crushing the exam and having more opportunities for your child. I'm Adam Shlomi, the founder of SoFlo Tutors. I went to Georgetown University, scored a 1570 on the SAT, and in the last 5 years, SoFlo has helped 2,083 students raise their test score. We've been so successful because we hire great tutors from top schools, Harvard, Stanford, Princeton, train them really well, and ensure that our families are succeeding. If you do your research online, you'll see that we have 5-star reviews across Google, Yelp, and Thumbtack, and that families think we're worth every penny. I'm really proud of the success we've had, and it's all because of our 3-step method for raising test scores. Step 1 is diagnostic testing. I want to figure out what your child is like as a test taker. Are they running out of time? Do they get anxious during questions? Or do they not know the core concepts? I want to figure out what's going through their mind when they're getting wrong answers, what's holding them back, and then build a strategy to pinpoint their weakness. Diagnostic testing also lets us figure out what their strengths are, so that way we can be efficient with our time. I don't want to cover the things they already know. I want to identify, here are the areas where you're getting questions wrong, where we can make a big impact quickly, and focus on those areas of weakness. Diagnostic testing helps us spend the rest of our time more efficiently, and it's an important first step, so that way we're approaching studying and testing with a plan. The second step is tutoring sessions. Your child's going to work one-on-one over Zoom with an expert tutor. We're not at the kitchen table, but it's still very human, and we're giving your child our full attention and getting that full attention back. Your child works one-on-one with a tutor who comes from a top school like a Harvard, Princeton, Stanford. They crush the exam, and they know the SAT and the ACT really well, and they've been thoroughly trained on how to teach this information to students. Most importantly, they're young, and they're excited to work with your child, and they're putting a lot of effort into getting the best results possible. They've been down this path themselves just a few years ago, and they know how stressful and tough the SAT and the ACT can be, and they want to make it better for the next generation. During tutoring sessions, we're turning their mistakes from past practice tests into learning opportunities, and we're teaching based on our proprietary curriculum. So if we see that your child has a weak point in commas and they don't know semicolons versus commas, we're going to bring out a lesson based around that weakness. I'm a big believer in one-on-one education. When we can cut out the distractions of the classroom, and your child can work one-on-one with a tutor, ask every question they have, a tutor who's going at their own pace so they make sure they're not getting left behind or they're bored in class, we get the best results possible. So the second step is one-on-one tutoring session. The third step in our 3-step process is practice, practice, practice. Studying is like going to the gym. If you want to raise your score, you have to put in the work. And so students are going to do at least 1 hour of homework for every hour of tutoring. Normally the homework are real SAT or ACT tests from the past few years that we have access to. This way your child is studying with the closest thing to the real exam that they are going to see on test day. Because they're taking the real exam with pencil and paper, I want them doing all of their practice with pencil and paper. So you'll be printing out practice tests, they'll be taking them at the kitchen table, and then during tutoring sessions, we'll be turning those mistakes from homework into learning opportunities. So to recap, our first step is a diagnostic test to figure out where your child is struggling. Our second step is tutoring sessions so we can teach them the material they need. And our third step is practice to reinforce what they're learning in class and understand the SAT better. But this call is mostly about you. So we're also going to talk about your child and your specific situation. We're going to talk about SAT versus ACT and considering which exam is right for your family. We're going to talk about test dates and timeline. When are the test dates that you should take? Which ones to be avoided? What timeline makes the most sense? And then the third step that we're going to talk about are a few secrets from SoFlo, like super scoring and score choice. So the first step that I want to talk about is SAT versus ACT. They're two different exams. Some students are better at the SAT, others are better at the ACT. Colleges don't care which exam you take, they just want to see a high score. So we want to figure out which exam your child has more potential on, and then put all of our energy there. If your child's a natural ACT test taker, we don't want to waste time with the SAT. So the best way to figure out which exam is right for your child is we have a combo SAT-ACT diagnostic test. This way they can see both exams side by side, go through them together with the tutor, and we can figure out which one is right for them. But we can also tell a little bit early and inform you about the differences between the SAT and the ACT. The biggest difference is time. The ACT is a very fast test. There's 75 questions in 45 minutes on the fastest section. So for students who love to be in a rush and always finish first, this test is a blessing. But for students who are a little bit slower and take a more deliberate pace, generally the SAT is a better fit. The other difference is trickiness. The SAT is a lot trickier and confusing, and students have to read between the lines. The ACT is much more direct and straightforward. Oftentimes, if I see a student who is a really great student in school, but they have a very low SAT score relative to their GPA, I want to try out the ACT for them. And oftentimes it's a lot more straightforward and it lands a lot better. So we are going to ask a few questions about what your student is like as a test taker to give you an idea whether SAT or ACT is a better fit for them. What I don't want you doing is I don't want you taking an SAT, signing up for an SAT, and then signing up for an ACT, waiting 2 months to get your scores back, and then deciding which exam is right. I want us to decide that sooner rather than later, so we don't waste time in the test prep process taking exams that you're not going to be focusing on or studying with. I want to choose which test is right for you as soon as possible, and then push the other one out the door. So we'll be talking about SAT versus ACT, figuring out which exam is right for your child, and explaining the most important differences. The second thing that we're going to talk about in our call is choosing the right test dates for your family. If your child's taking the SAT in October, we don't want them to start studying in January. We generally want to start studying no earlier than 6 months before their first test. And I generally think 2 to 3 months is the sweet spot. Most students are going to improve about 100 points after 10 weeks. So someone who needs to improve 200 to 300 points, they're going to be studying for a couple months. A student who's only 40 points away from their goal score probably only needs 4 to 6 weeks. We want to be upfront with you in the beginning about how long this process is going to take. And that also means we want to be upfront about how much money you're going to be expecting to spend. We don't want to lie to you and say that something is going to take 4 hours if it's really going to take 24 hours. We want to be upfront about how much time your child's going to have to dedicate, how long this is going to take, and how much money you're going to spend to get to the scores that you want. The third reason you want to be taking the SAT soon is that there's no penalty for taking the test. This leads us to the next thing we're going to talk about in our call, which is a SoFlo secret, super scoring. So this SoFlo secret, super scoring and score choice are huge advantages. What it really means is that there's no penalty for taking the SAT multiple times, there's only benefits. Super scoring is when colleges will cherry pick your highest scores. So if someone crushes the SAT math section in August, and they did really well on the SAT reading section in November, colleges will cherry pick those highest scores and combine them into one super score. So that's a really big advantage because colleges are taking your highest score regardless of each test date and combining it into one super score. There's a big incentive to take the test multiple times. And then score choice means that there's no penalty for taking the test multiple times. Score choice means you choose which scores you report to the colleges. So if your child took the exam in June before they took that August and November date, and they were nervous and they did bad and it was sort of a dress rehearsal, then we'll never send that score to colleges. We choose which scores we want to report. And so there's no penalty for taking the test multiple times. This is a really big special advantage that a lot of parents don't know about. So we want you to take advantage of super scoring and score choice by taking the test multiple times and doing everything you can to try and get the highest score from your child. Lastly, this call is a chance for you to ask any questions that you've been having. Lots of families are really uncertain and worried about the test prep process. And so here's a chance, uninterrupted, to freely ask questions and speak with an educational expert. You can vent about how remote learning is hard for your child, or that they're not the best test taker. And we can provide guidance and consultations on what you should do to move forward. Even if you don't use SoFlo, we want to be helpful. We have free resources that we can recommend. We can refer to other tutoring companies, and we're happy to be a resource. So if you come with questions, we are here to give you answers. This call is a chance for your family to leave more educated and more prepared than they came before. So to recap what we've talked about so far, first, we spoke about what's it like to get a great SAT score and how that can be an amazing feeling for your child. We went over the 3-step process that SoFlo has for raising test scores and helping your child achieve that dream SAT score. And then we went over a really important strategy, SAT versus ACT, and picking the exam right for your child, choosing the right test dates and study timeline, and super scoring and score choice, so that your child can take the exams as many times as they want with no penalty, only benefits. So if you're ready to get started, click on the link below. You'll be brought to a page where you can schedule a call so we can learn more about your situation and introduce our program. I love talking to families, and I'm excited to help out however I can. So what I'm going to do now is show you a video of a tutor explaining a question. Megan's one of the best tutors at SoFlo. She got a 36 on the ACT, a 1570 on the SAT, and comes from Princeton University. I want you to see how we break down our questions for students, doing a really good job of slowing things down and making it into sort of understandable chunks, but also keeping things moving and sort of finding this balance where we explain questions really with simplicity and break things down for students, but we also don't spend hours explaining something simple, and we're able to sort of be economic with our time. So watch this video, see how Megan explains a question, and I think that's an interesting demo to watch, sort of what it looks like to be tutored.
Now here for number 4, we're looking at what is f of negative 3x. And in order to do this problem, we have to understand the notation f of x. And we know that on a graph, all points will have an x comma y value, right? And so the x value we see right here in the parentheses, and our y value is essentially this whole thing. The f of x is basically just a fancy way to say y. And so what that means is that to solve for your y value, you just plug in whatever is inside of the parentheses. For example, if we were talking about f of 2, that would essentially mean that x is equal to 2, and we would plug in 2 wherever we saw an x. But in this case, we're not asked for, a normal number, we're asked for negative 3x. And so that essentially means that our x has now become negative 3x. So when I solve this equation then, for f of negative 3x, I need to do negative 2, and then, negative 2, and then instead of writing x, I'll replace it with that negative 3x, because that's what's in my parentheses right here. And then plus 5, right? And negative 2 times negative 3, that gives me a positive 6. So I have 6x plus 5, which we see here in answer choice B.
If you enjoyed that video of an explanation, I want you to hear from our families what the results of our tutoring are. We've had a lot of happy families and lots of great reviews. And now I want you to hear directly from the families about how they were able to improve their score, how they studied, and what their SoFlo experience was like. These families are real families. They weren't coached, they weren't paid. They just loved their tutoring so much and wanted to help us out. And so they recorded these video testimonials to share their story. Take a look, and after that, we'll be done with this video. Click on the link below, schedule a call with me, and I'm excited to start speaking.
My name is Ben, and I'm a junior from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Using SoFlo, I was able to raise my SAT score to a 1510. My tutor was super easy to schedule with and coordinate with, and he was also very professional, which made it really easy to get along with. He taught me tips and tricks that especially helped me in the reading and writing section that normally I wouldn't have got anywhere else.
Hi, we're the Harris family. I'm Joanna, and this is my son Joshua, and we're here to talk about SoFlo Tutors and Adam and the help that we got from them last summer before Josh took his first SAT. We really liked the fact that because Josh had a full-time summer job and was going to be tired during the week, we liked the convenience of scheduling this for a Sunday and having like a 1 or 2 hour session every week. We kind of went at our own pace.
My tutor, John, he helped me get my score on the PSAT, I got an 1150 my last try in sophomore year. In the SAT in August, I got a 1340, which is a huge increase. He would not move on to the next concept until I told him that I understood it.
So we highly recommend SoFlo Tutors for anybody who's interested in SAT tutors or ACT. Thank you.
Jake improved from a really 25 to 32 on his ACT score. I found Adam through Thumbtack. I had researched tons and tons of tutors, and most of them were pretty expensive. And I finally found through Thumbtack. I used Thumbtack to find Adam, and I called him, and he was extremely helpful and very nice, and it was a great price.
So my relationship with Hunter is really good. He was really easy to connect with, and he's really helpful with everything. He can really just help everyone improve, and he's super nice, and he can explain everything really well. Through Skype was fine. I mean, it's just like being there in person, and it's very convenient because you don't have to go anywhere. You can do it from your house. Most of the times I was just in my pajamas, just grinding ACT stuff.
And our experience with SoFlo and Adam and Hunter was fantastic. I definitely
Highly recommend.
thank you.
it.
Yes, I highly recommend. Yes, I highly recommend, and you can't beat the price, and it was excellent. We're very, very happy that we chose them, and now we're just waiting to see where Jake's going to go to college.